Okay, so here's what I've done. The throttle plate was sticking wide open, so I pulled all the covers off, and the engine shroud, I pulled everything off. And over here is the thermostat. That's this piece, and when it heats up, it pushes all the way forward. Originally, the governor was wrapped around the front of this, but whenever I would start the engine, this would push it all the way forward, and it opened up the throttle plate on the carburetor completely wide open, and the engine was running horribly. So then I looped this through the center of here and tried it again, and it essentially was the same result. It was just opening the throttle plate completely, and it would run really choppy at idle, and if I tried to actually use the pressure washer, the engine would just die. So from there, I have completely removed it from this assembly, and now the governor will only move forward based on the air produced by the fan here. So it pushes forward to right about there at max, and now it's actually running almost perfectly. Not quite perfectly, maybe like 90%, but it idles great, or actually it idles good, and it runs under load great. So I can use the pressure washer. It sounds exactly like it should. It sounds like the first day that I bought it, and this thing's pretty new. I used it maybe a dozen times, and then it just started having a lot of problems running, and I winterized it and put it in storage. It's been in storage ever since, and I decided to take it back out because I would like to use it. And just couldn't figure out why it wasn't running well until I took the filter off and realized that the throttle plate was wide open pretty much all the time. Closing that throttle plate manually with a screwdriver, it would run great, and I could actually use the pressure washer with one hand and hold the throttle plate semi-closed with the other, but obviously that's not a solution. So I pulled all this apart, and this is what I've done. I've basically disengaged the governor from the thermostat altogether. I think it's holding the throttle plate closed just a slight amount more than I want it to. It runs every once in a while at idle. It gets a little bit of a hesitation, but when it's under load, it runs perfectly. What I am worried about though is if it's running rich all the time, that'll cause the engine to run hot, and I don't want to burn up the engine. So I'm either going to bend this forward a little bit more, but I have to be careful so that it doesn't like get too bent out of shape and get seized up or caught on anything down there to where it's going to stick, and then it's going to keep the governor with the throttle plate in the closed position. I want it to be able to move freely. So the other thing that I'm thinking about doing is maybe just filing away a little bit of this plastic right here so that it wraps around this part of the thermostat. But as it stands like this, with it completely disengaged, it starts, it runs really well, and it operates under load perfectly. What it doesn't do is it doesn't idle perfectly. It'll be a very, very smooth idle, and then it'll be just a bit choppy. And I messed with the throttle plate enough manually to know just about where it should be, and to me it looked like it was maybe just a little bit too closed. So I'm gonna bend this a little bit, or maybe file a little of this plastic, and give it one more go. But that seems to be what the problem is. I don't understand why, if this is the way they put it together at the factory, and this goes in front of this, and I would assume you would adjust it by bending this backwards, but considering that I put this through the center here, no matter how much I bend this backwards, it's still going to be open more than when I put it through the center, and when I put it through the center it ran just as badly. So it doesn't really make any sense to me. So The only other thing that I can think of is that it's not getting enough fuel, and that's why when I'm closing the throttle plate it's running better. But I kind of don't think that's what it is, simply because once you put an engine under load, if it's getting enough fuel or the right mixture of fuel and air to run, once you put it under load, it's going to die, because you're not going to have enough power. You're not going to have enough fuel and air getting into the engine for it to run correctly. And as I have it set up now, once I put it under load, it works great. And I've been using it with the yellow tip, which is the high pressure tip, but not the zero tip. So there's the red one and what used to be white, because I guess it sat out in the sun a little bit. So I'm using it on the yellow one, and it's producing enough power. And I did a little bit of testing. I had some paint on my concrete here from when we had our house painted on the outside. Took the paint right off, and seems to be working the way that it's supposed to. So I'm gonna mess with it a little bit more. But if you have a Craftsman pressure washer with a Briggs and Stratton engine, and this is a 675 series, easy start, 190cc engine. If you have that, and this is the problem that you're having, is that it's not running well, I would start to look at this. And if you don't have this pressure washer, I would get something with a Honda engine, because anything that I've ever owned with Briggs and Stratton has given me lots of problems. Anything that I've ever owned with a Honda engine, 0 problems.